AskReddit by Drybus 935. What is your don't ask how I know random fact? There's a guy in Germany who has a 1-year waiting list and makes 6 figures making leather harnesses and masks for people who like to role play as horses. A stable income. Good for him. Male and female beavers have different colored fluids that come out of their anal glands. In males, brown, and in females white or clear. It is one of the main modes of gender identification, as they don't have external genitalia. Another fun fact, the castors, or castoreum, which produce that fluid can be used to make perfume and edible artificial flavorings. You have quite a lot of time, certainly more than 10 seconds, to turn back on the main pumps of a nuclear reactor once you have accidentally turned them off. I'm not surprised. The amount of fail-safes, redundancies, emergency scenario planning for nuclear power plants is insane. I toured a nuclear plant and wrote my high school senior thesis on the plans put in place to ensure the Fukushima disaster would not happen at that plant. I'm sure the secondary pumps are plenty capable of handling the reactor until the main pumps are repaired or just turned back on. If your cat chews on fresh eucalyptus, they might start hallucinating and fall over repeatedly, leading to a $400 emergency vet bill just to be told she's just kinda high. And that's part of why koalas love it. Little stoners. Old human bones are very porous, so if you lick them, they'll stick to your tongue. Which is fun fact why paleontologists lick bones. A pigeon will only eat a starburst if you chew it up a little bit first. Just to clarify, chew the starburst, not the pigeon. Note to self, next time read the whole post before trying. Wikipedia has shockingly accurate nuclear munitions counts for locations and weapon types. Never underestimate the nerds who write for Wikipedia. Turmeric can be used as clothes dye. It is capable of permanently dyeing cotton cloth even after it has passed through the digestive tract of an adult male. You shit your pants, didn't you? If you ever trying to survive in the Arctic, don't eat polar bear liver. It is so high in vitamin A it will kill you. You overestimate my hunting abilities. TV shows and movies go out of their way to make military intelligence officers look badass. Real life spies, by design and training, are boring. Regular house, standard second-hand cars, dress down, have vague boring job titles, accounts receivable, as cover and do not draw attention to themselves. Most come from specialized academia. Edit. I apologize to the accounts receivable, second-hand car owners. And my first post was clumsy. Socialize with those in academia. Thanks for the refined correction. I love when Marvel heroes are undercover abroad with blue jeans, a leather jacket, sunglasses and a baseball cap. Might as well be wearing nothing but an American flag. A significant component to what makes stealth aircraft stealthy comes down to how their parts are painted. For the moment, chrome coatings seem likely to change this in the near future, if they haven't already. Your muscles can keep twitching for several hours after you die. Also, beard can appear to grow. This is however not because a beard itself grows but because the skin shrinks. Instead of pushing out a turd, just take deep breaths. Just breathe deep and low. Allow the deep breaths to push out your turd. If you're going to shove something up your butt, make sure there's something at the base so that it can't go all the way in. That 14 inches zucchini may look like a good idea at the market, but the ER that night might have to tell you it wasn't. Can definitely confirm this works. I was probably 8 years old and had a humongous rock solid turd that just wouldn't come out no matter how hard I tried pushing. As an 8-year-old, I thought my life was over and I would have a giant log sticking out of my butt for the rest of my life. I cried in a panic and yelled for my mom from the toilet, and she told me to relax and just breathe. Few minutes later it was out. At least she didn't laugh at me. Killing someone by smothering them is not a foolproof way to commit murder, as smothering caused asphyxiation damages a specific capillary in the eye. The pathologist will check the eye and immediately pronounce the corpse a murder victim, and there are many people in jail around the world that did not know this prior to their conviction. Edit. This is a common trope in murder mysteries, and I asked a pathologist about it. I have never seen law and order. Several people have given the correct term in the comments. Crows are called murders. There are other ways to kill people. This blew up overnight, which suggests I just changed a lot of people's murder plans. Reddit, you never fail to be interesting. You can't watch an episode of Law and Order without hearing about a pique or homage. When Marie Antoinette was awaiting her execution, her best friend Marie-Thérèse Louise de Savoie-Carignan, Princess of Lamballe, was taken and tried. They offered her grace only if she swore to liberty and equality, and hatred of the king and queen. She agreed to the first part but refused to claim hatred and denounce her best friend even after her father begged her to in order for her life to be spared. She was taken to a slaughter yard and a mob brutally murdered her. Then, the mob decapitated her and crudely impaled her head on a pike, and then placed the pike on front of Marie's cell window so she could see what had become of her best friend and what fate awaited her. Whatever else she did, at least she was a real one for her friend. Bleach alone doesn't get rid of blood from a UV light, however hydrogen peroxide does for the most part. If you need to clean out a large amount of blood, pour hydrogen peroxide on it, wait about 5 minutes, scrub it, then use bleach. After, cover the smell with candles, or if it's in the bathroom, open a window and turn on the shower for about 10-20 minutes. However, the bleach is enough to denature the proteins and make DNA tracing impossible. So don't skip it if you don't have the 5 minutes. Although never technically illegal, oral sex has officially been legal in England since 1828. It's illegal in 18 American states, however the law is unenforceable due to a 2003 Supreme Court ruling. So oral sex was illegal in a good chunk of America up until 2003. The antidote if you drink antifreeze, ethylene glycol, is whiskey, or any hard alcohol. Large hospital pharmacies stock intravenous ethyl alcohol for this purpose. Ducks rape things a lot. So do dolphins. Hershey's chocolate has the strong smell of vomit or fesses to some people, me, and that's because they use butyric acid as a preservative. Butyric acid is the compound that makes vomit smell so bad. Edit. Digging further into it, there are some claims that they may not be adding the butyric acid, but rather it is occurring from essentially spoiling the milk in their milk chocolate. Either way, the butyric acid and putrid smell remains a part of their product. That explains the weird aftertaste I always get. I don't smell it, but their chocolate always has this super unpleasant sharp acidic aftertaste that I find repulsive. I assume this is why. You should wash your hands if you have applied Tiger Balm or icy hot rub on any sore muscles before flicking your bean. Or inserting a menstrual product. My name was Spicy Vagina in my bestie's phone for 3 years after I sobbed to her about my mishap. Asbestos tastes like chalk. And if you lick it, it has the texture of extremely gritty sandpaper. Which is actually the feeling of microscopic asbestos needles piercing your flesh. Which is exactly why, once it becomes dust, it is so damn dangerous. The German guy who sought to meet men on the internet so he could cut off their genitals, with their permission, and fry them up and eat them. When asked by the judge why he rejected other applicants, he replied, "There was a guy from Italy who wanted to be electrocuted first. I thought he was a bit weird." And me was. Consensual homicide is such a strange thing. If you work 40 hours a week and spend 10 minutes a day pooping, it equals a whole week of paid vacation per year. Edit. It's roughly 52 hours a year pooping. Edit 2. Math is hard. Ha. I did that calculation years ago and it figured into whether or not to accept the job in the first place. A nurse went missing in Saskatoon, SK, Canada in the spring of 1962. She went to mail a letter and go for a walk. Her body was found in a shallow grave by the river a few blocks away. At the time, her next door neighbor, across the alley, was the 48-year-old postman. In 1929, that postman was the unwilling accomplice of his serial killer uncle, leading the police to numerous shallow graves on his uncle's farm. His story was told in the 2008 movie Changeling. So I guess the popular theory is that that man grew up to replicate those crimes and killed his neighbor. Beginning in 1911, in anticipation of the outbreak of WW1 in 1914, two statesmen, one from England and one from France, began visiting locations in France that they believed would be the settings for a number of major battles that would occur during the Great War. Long bike rides through these future battle zones and the countryside, and weeks spent building a foundation for a French Anglo codebook that would later prove important in helping win the war. Sounds romantic. I can tell you in seconds if a place smells like cat blood. That's not a gross euphemism. I can identify the smell of the blood of cats. I can identify the smell of cat pee. There is a species of turtle that can breathe through its butt. The US had the ability to view any American's backyard via spy satellites about 15 years earlier than you would think could be scientifically possible. The American military is always 10-15 years ahead of the private sector in terms of bleeding edge technology. Semen makes an effective invisible ink. Every man his own style. Chlorine gas in WW1 was made industrially by running an electric current through salt water. The more worrying one, bacon grease mixed with lime makes glycerine. Glycerine with nitric and sulfuric acid makes nitroglycerine. Nitroglycerine with wood pulp makes dynamite. Edit. One more. When severe damage comes to the brainstem, like from a headshot, the body can twitch, or more eerily, move your arms and legs in a very lifelike manner. This is where the Lazarus sign comes from. During WWII, the US government encouraged civilians to save their excess grease from cooking just for that fact, grease into explosives. It was considered a patriotic duty. Look up the American Fat Salvage Committee. There are technically 10 different classifications of necrophile. Necrophilia, necrophilib, necrophilic, necrophilid, necrophily, necrophilif, necrophilig, necrophilia, necrophiliae, necrophilage. Doctors, or surgeons more specifically, that make too many mistakes during surgery, i.e., leaving instruments in patients, frequently gets quietly traded to other hospitals where they continue their path of destruction with the patients not being aware of their past record. Hospitals tend to keep quiet about the matter to avoid lawsuits. My mom was a victim of one of these surgeons, took 6 surgeries, 3 years, physio, and rehab to get back to a semi-normal state, and the consequences still affect her today. Tried to sue and the case was deliberately fucked by a lawyer who offered to help us but turned out to be related to the doctor. No one found out until 3 years into proceedings. Doc had already been reprimanded, so I guess for some reason it was impossible to try again. No lawyer would take the case after that. It was absolutely horrendous. You can tell a frog's sex by the size of its ears. Frogs have ears? If you overfill a fast food gravy cup then put a lid on, it will create a pressurized gravy stream that sprays all over your face and uniform while your coworker looks on in horror. I was at a quiz team tournament, because I'm cool right dart. The question started this organization founded by Nathan Bedford Forrest. I buzz in and enthusiastically say K. 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 Everyone was impressed then horrified. I knew that from Forrest Gump. The oldest computer program still in use today is MOCUS, Mechanization of Contract Administration Services. Programmed in the 1960s, it's still used by the United States government to process large contract payments to federal contractors. It's still around because it still works, with numerous updates and refreshes of course. I used to use it. Not my favorite program I used as a contract administrator, but not the worst by any stretch. Earthworms, specifically night crawlers, are way crunchier than you think. So are sea worms. Same taste and texture as celery. The act of cannibalism is not illegal in the Netherlands. If you were to acquire human flesh in a legal way, you are allowed to eat it. I believe that is true in America, too. Cannibalism is not illegal, but defiling a corpse is. During the 1969-71 occupation of Alcatraz by Native American protesters, a drunken Richard Nixon ordered a nuclear strike of the island, but the order was ignored. Holy shit. Both HPV and Epstein-Barr seem to cause a measurable increase in breast cancer. People think of HPV causing cervical cancer, but it also causes anal, rectal, pharyngeal and esophageal cancer. There's lot of cross-contamination and auto-inoculation going on when switching between vaginal sex and other kinds of sex. The smell of a dead body can stick with you for a day or two no matter how many times you wash your hands or shower. So what you're saying is wear gloves. The Zoroastrians leave their dead in special towers to be eaten by vultures. There is at least one Native American tribe that does that too. It's called a sky burial. You can make a mold of your butthole and use it to make custom-made chocolate of your butthole. How? I really need to know. If you are charged with bigamy, the judge has the option to push through any divorce proceedings that got started but never finished, and then throw out the case once it is done. Cleopatra owned a dildo. Cleopatra 25.25. If you know the previous governor of New York, Governor Cuomo. He has a cousin who owned a apartment near a train station, and he sells coke to people on a fairly decent scale. Bill Gates threw a stapler at a Microsoft employee in a bug scrub meeting, missed him, hit the guy next to him in the forehead, sending that guy to the hospital. If you are going to dismember a corpse after murdering them, when pulling the teeth, don't forget the impacted wisdom teeth. They may contain enough mitochondria DNA to allow an ID. What am I reading? Geese can slap fucking hard.